Today, there's something I wanted to talk about, and honestly, I'm still like on the fence about whether or not I'll even share this, but I think ultimately I will, because that's kind of the point of me recording it at all, right? And not just thinking or ruminating about it. So this message, or this rambling, is really, it's something that's kind of been an undercurring theme for me pretty much as long as I can remember, throughout the entirety of my life, right? But recently, especially like the past few weeks, and of course over the course of this past year, it's gotten louder, and it's gotten to a point where I feel if I don't share it, I don't know, it's like it feels like there's, it's like this is the load bearing wall of something. And I don't know. And it's like I need to either put it in place to, build up a structure, or I need to pull it out in order to demolish one. I'm not sure which one. Maybe it's going to be both, but this is what it's felt like. And the reason I'm sharing this today is because, of course, I think many of you, most of you, whoever that comes across this, you probably know today is the Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year. And we're going from the year of the serpent, or the snake, into the year of the horse. And I think it's especially relevant that I share this now, just because this past year especially has kind of shown me that, like snakes, there's something I've been trying to shed, right? And it's not just me. I think this is kind of, interestingly enough, recently I kind of have started to have this view of all people in this way. That is, like the concept of the shed, it to me kind of symbolizes like triggers, right? And especially since the shed of that single animal happens throughout the entirety of their lives. And more specifically, the reason it's snakes is because of the way humans respond to snakes, like the actual animal, right? And the way they're portrayed in the minds or in the media, and how they come to mind for people, if that makes sense. Like the way people sort of assign this title of snake to people, to like other people that they deem treacherous or, dishonorable or untrustworthy in some way, or just even malicious, right? Whereas, in my mind, humans are just animals too. And like, obviously not a revolutionary idea, but I mean, I think people, they kind of overlook that snakes, well, I don't know if all species do, but many of them have natural predators in their environments. They're not just, eating other animals. And like, even honestly, when I think about it, even when you consider the way people talk about wolves, as because we know they don't have any natural predators, but it's interesting because wolves actually have such intricate social dynamics and they're cooperative animals, but people just see the fact that they have this potential for destruction in their minds, right? Or like they only perceive that threatening aspect, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, I'm aware that it's a caution thing, but it's just interesting that they flatten the experience of these creatures into these elements and they kind of assign, or rather attribute, human morality to them. And it's very interesting in that way. But anyway, back to the snakes specifically and what I was talking about with triggers and the shedding. So, you know, this past year, the year of the serpent, I've kind of, like, my personal experience with it has been really this kind of withdrawal and isolation for a variety of reasons, which I won't get into today, but because that's not really the main focus here. But I've come to realize that, again, it was really something that's been driving, like a point that's been kind of hammering at me this year, was what my shed was, or like my main shed, you know. I think people tend to have more than one. Like, honestly, if we're talking about me, you can call me Medusa. But, um, but yeah, the main thing for me is, like, I finally, and honestly, this part of the realization wasn't even until like a week ago, but I just kind of realized I have spent so much of my life running from the cost of using my voice. And I think I've kind of always understood that there was a price to pay in that. And I always thought that the price, and I think I've always, well, I'm sure I've always thought that the price of suppressing my voice, you know, was, you know, it wasn't as steep as it actually is. Or rather, it was worth it to suppress it in the ways that I have. Because, you know, anyone who actually, you know, has known me throughout my life, they know I'm not, like, especially averse to sharing my voice, but there's a disconnect within that. It's never really personal. And, you know, I used to think I was good at pretending to be personable, or like pretending to foster those kinds of connections, but turns out I'm not, or at least not as good as I thought. And to be clear, it's not that I was, you know, doing this, or, you know, pretending for any purpose to, like, harm anyone. But I mean, I'm not even sure if I have. So I think I've always kind of, well, you know what? That's a lie. I know I have. But I think for a long time I convinced myself that my impact on others wasn't what it was. That, you know, what I said or did or didn't say or didn't do wouldn't have any effect on them, because like the way I saw it, honestly part of me still sees it this way, is, you know, I'm just one person, right? How much of an impact could I possibly have on these other people? So, and especially when I'm just like, especially if I just, you know, stay silent about what's really important to me, in like a more personal sense, because I'm someone who admittedly is very loud and opinionated, in not necessarily loud in terms of my voice, but like my actual the resonance of my voice, but definitely very blunt and straightforward about a lot of things. But I've been reflecting on, you know, because I had this conversation maybe a couple years ago, could have been longer, not sure, but basically I was talking about how I don't connect with people kind of like at all. And there's also like no matter how close I potentially get to someone, there's always a wall and like or a gap. Like there's a barrier that can't be crossed or can't be bridged. And I think for a while I thought it was entirely just my nature that created this barrier. Then I've been thinking about I'm like I was thinking, oh, I'm not that special as to affect anybody that way, but why would I also be that special as to like have an invisible barrier or shield around me, right? That's something I'm intentionally doing every time I don't say what I really want to say to the people around me. And it's like, because I mean, and again, I think the reason maybe people don't necessarily notice this tendency I have at first is because of the fact that I'm opinionated. So I guess they think I'm going to always be blunt and straightforward about everything. But I think, or rather, I've realized I'm more transparent than I thought in terms of like my facial expressions. Like I can't really hide what I feel in my face. And so there's a mismatch in what I say and what I'm showing others. And I think I've not, before I kind of, well, of course I didn't realize it, but even after I did, I kind of didn't give it as much thought or as much sort of power, influence. I don't know. But at this part. But I think what I'm trying to say is maybe this video is more than just reflection, or it needs to be more than just reflection. It needs to also be, probably the reason I'm going to share it is actually for accountability, so I can do better, make more of an effort. But anyway, this is what I mean when I say, like, this is my shed, or my most valuable shed. It's the biggest one, because it's the one that I've kind of been carrying for most of my life. And I don't know, it's like I've been seeing this like recurring theme play out from my dreams to like the media to even with like encounters with strangers, where there's this nudge, this urge, this like maybe encouragement, or just a pulling to like come out of the cave and finally, I guess, stand in the truth, or, you know, come into the light, so to speak. So I think that's another part of the reason why it was important for me to share this now, like today, because moving from the year where you have to shed your skin, whether you like it or not, into this year of charge forward and be wild and untamed, or just don't let your spirit be broken. So I think it was time, I guess, to share. And I'm really, I don't know, so odd. But hopefully I've made sense in this version of my ramble. I might upload 2 videos, because there was another version that I talked about other things. So who knows? But for anyone else, if you see this, if you like this, if you resonate with it, or even if you don't, enjoy your new year.